Right.
I think we could do it with the elementary schools.
Right.
I don't know after that whether we could do neighborhood schools with the middle school and the high schools. Now, the other problem is bricks and mortar for the neighborhood schools. We would have to build more schools, and are we physically sound to do that?
Okay. Good questions. Are we on now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, number one, neighborhood schools, the concept that we're going to be looking at will be, first of all, starting out with elementary and middle schools. That's number one. It's not going to be enough cost savings for us. There's about 42, 46 elementary schools in the county right now, so it's not going to have that big of an impact. This is how you handle those objections. Number one, what we'll do is we'll offer a circle around schools. You might have a choice within that circle of 3 elementary, 3 middle schools, whatever that concept might be. That way you're doing two things. Number one, you're not forcing a parent to take a school that may not be performing as it should. You give them a choice within those 3. You've narrowed the choice. Right now I think parents can have 3 choices, or 6 choices, excuse me, under the current system. So the traditional boundary that people are concerned about, we can eliminate some of that by going to a clustering event. That's number one. And by the way, I do want to say this about schools, that half of our schools have resegregated out of the 81 public schools that are out there under this current system that we're under that was supposed to keep our schools balanced and diverse. It hasn't worked. That's one piece. The second piece is programs, and I have in front of me all the different programs that the different schools offer. What my intention would be as one board member would be to redirect the savings on the transportation piece to offer more programs to more students here in Lee County. For instance, you have Ida Baker High School, great high school, great programs. It's the most highly selected school in Lee County because of those programs, but it's in Cape Coral. Our Dunbar students certainly can't have access to that program, and they need to have access. And Dunbar's got a great technology program. They're one of the best in the country on testing. What I propose that we do down the line, I think initially we just go with elementary and middle, but down the line let's look at high schools also, and rolling out, as we save money, more programs for more students to take advantage instead of just having one school in one part of the county having all the programs and students trying to get into it. So I think initially we should keep the high schools on the choice program as we move forward, but have a plan in the next 4 years to slowly move them into a neighborhood concept as long as we're duplicating programs to the best of our ability. And this is just an example of the many programs that we have throughout the schools that, as a board member, a former board member, I had a little something to do with approving some of these programs, and I'm very proud of them. But we need to expand those programs for more students, especially our high-need students in other communities that are not getting access, our Lehigh community, and so forth. Now, you had mentioned about building more schools. I had an interesting conversation. I'm walking neighborhoods now in Fort Myers and talking to people about the schools. And there was a parent that said, well, you know, we don't feel we have, right here in the central Fort Myers area, they'd like more choices for middle schools than what they have now. Also, parents that I've talked to in Gateway are telling me they have to ride a bus, or their students have to ride a bus an hour and a half to get to a middle school. There will be some adjustments that need to be made, but it doesn't mean new construction. For instance, in Gateway, a suggestion that I have for that area initially to solve that middle school crisis that they have there is to go with a K-8 school that's currently an elementary school right now. That could be an easy move to make that wouldn't cost the taxpayers a lot of money. I remember being a former resident of the Cape Coral, that Cape Coral Elementary School came up as being, oh, we'd have to tear down houses, and oh, my word, we'll have to condemn buildings. That's all nonsense. You don't have to do that. As long as we cluster and we think carefully about our plan. By the way, my family moved here in the 40s and the 50s, and I moved here in the 50s, and I'm a graduate of Lee County Schools. And when I started with the system, we had neighborhood schools. Now, granted, we didn't have the population that we have now, but the initial schools that were built here were built under the concept of neighborhood schools. We have them in the communities. We have a few that are out of sync, but they can be handled through careful administrative planning And there's going to be some transportation. I'm not going to say we're going to eliminate all the abuses that we have in transportation, but right now it's unacceptable that we have students sitting on the bus for an hour and a half and 2 hours each way every day. We can't sustain that. It's not only unjust, it's un-American to put students through that sort of situation. Nothing good happens on a bus. There's no education going on, and we simply can't sustain that long-term program. We need to make a change. We can do it without spending a lot of money. I feel confident with the right board members supporting it and the right superintendent. And by the way, Dr. Burke does have some experience with neighborhood schools from his previous job, and he understands what needs to be done. And I've sat in all the meetings over the past year and a half listening to some of the concerns that have come up about neighborhood schools. It'll work.
Well, we have about 5 minutes left of the interview. I wanted to ask you about, you had developed somewhat of a reputation as a maverick when you were on the board the last time. How do you see yourself fitting in with, because certainly you'd be, if you win this election, you'll be working with 4 board members that you've never worked with before as a board member. How do you see yourself fitting into that group?
I think the group is right now doing fine under the circumstances. You do have 2 disruptions on the board right now. This Dr. Burke situation that came up in February was unnecessary. Obviously some kind of ploy for something, power grab, I don't know what, but I think that the people that I would be working with, that we can work together. You know, being a maverick, I was tagged with a lot of names. I have a long list of names that I've been called by people, but I think that you need to ask questions, and you can't go in there and just say you got to be a rubber stamp as part of the team. And that's what I was working with before, is 4 people that would rubber stamp anything put in front of them. And I didn't feel that that was my duty to do that, to ask questions. And of course, when I asked questions, I was shouted down. But you know what? You're doing your job by asking questions. I'm not going to say I'm going to stop asking questions, but I think the group that's in there now is diverse enough, and I think they're smart enough to understand that we have a big job ahead of us. The recent academic results that have come out indicate that. We have financial issues that need to be addressed. I've watched carefully the board members and how they're working right now, and I want to compliment the 3 that stopped this ridiculous ousting of Burke that was orchestrated by the previous 2 board members. They did the right thing in keeping stability in the system. I don't see a reason for standing out unnecessarily under the current circumstances. However, I'm going to continue to write op-eds when I feel it's necessary. I'm going to continue to ask questions, and I'm going to continue to press the things that I feel will help the school district. And I think there's going to be some sympathetic voices on that particular school board, especially in the area of neighborhood schools and academics, and ensuring the money's being spent well. I'm not even concerned about that board. That's past history. That's over with. I'm coming back to accomplish hopefully something good for the public and the children of Lee County. And that's a quality education. That's also students leaving the system that know how to read and do basic math, and that's not happening in all cases right now. We cannot sustain that type of academic results and be a world, or have our children expect to compete in a worldwide economy. It's not going to happen. Again, it's unjust, unsustainable, I'll quote from an editorial, and un-American to have those kind of results and say that the school system is performing at the level it should be. It can do better. We got great teachers. We got great support people. We need to have leadership at the very top that can leverage that to the benefit of our students and taxpayers.
Any final questions, Michelle?
I don't have any questions. I just, one other way.
Yes.
Are you going to continue calling for audits frequently?
I'm going to continue to do what's necessary to ensure that the money is being spent wisely. All of the audits that have come back, as you're well aware, have come back with issues. The transportation audit showed how inefficient we were with our transportation system. The Julie Naminsky, who was our former auditor, found very shocking lapses in accountability. What I will push for is bringing back the internal school board auditor, which was eliminated by my colleagues. One of them has said that, well, we brought in Mr. Green's office, which is great, but when that was done 3 years ago, it was never used. We need to have someone there ongoing to look at operations. It's not a gotcha thing. I'm a former executive of a major Fortune 500 company. The people that work for me, we continuously look at our operations and we use audits on an ongoing basis as a way to improve and put more money to the classroom. Just take a look at the land purchases. And I think that's shocking enough when you look at what we paid for some of the property, take a look at transportation, and take a look at over $200 million worth of discretionary spending that we have. I don't have to remind the public that we need to do better. As we watch, we have Title I monies that an audit's being done on, and I think there's going to be shock in the community when they see the results and where that money's actually going. It has to be done.
Any final words before we conclude?
I want to thank the news press. Over the past 8 years, we've had things maybe we agreed or not agreed on, but I think you're opening up the right thing for the candidates so the people of Lee County can make the right choice for one of the most important jobs, in my opinion, in the county, and that's the education of our children. I feel very confident in what I have to say, and our children will come first and our taxpayers will come first if I'm honored with this position. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.